Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Spacepower Podcast. I'm your host, Bill Woolf, the president and founder of the Space Force Association. And I'm honored today to have with me Mr. Matt Magaña from Voyager. Matt, thanks so much for being with me today.
I appreciate you guys having me. Obviously, it's an exciting time right now, so super excited to be here.
Very excited to announce right here today that, Matt, you're joining SFA's board of directors. Thanks so much for doing that. We need all the help we can get here at SFA.
Oh, thank you guys for having me. I mean, it's honestly an honor for me. Super passionate about, Space Force and the Space Force Association. So super excited to be here to talk about it and my passions and kind of what we're doing at Voyager.
Yeah, really interested to hear about Voyager. But first, let's talk about your background. Walk us through the career of Matt. How did you end up where you're at now leading Voyager?
Yeah, I mean, I'll peel back to as a young kid, I spent a lot of times at air shows with my parents, my grandmother, my grandfather, aunts and uncles. A lot of them were in aerospace and defense for a long time. My dad was at Hughes Aircraft doing some of the first, space programs when they started. So I like to say 60, 70 years of my family has been in aerospace and defense. Been crazy passionate about doing it ever since. I knew when I went to school, I was going to be in aerospace and defense. I knew that was where I felt like waking up every day. I was going to be able to do something, change the world, protect the world, make real change into what's actually happening, and make sure that every day everybody goes to sleep, put their head on a pillow, and not be concerned about what's going to happen tomorrow. And I've just kind of lived my whole life, focused on how can I do that, and then had a long career doing that so far. Spent a lot of time on the big side. I did a lot of airborne programs, first set of the radars and advanced radar programs at Raytheon. Did a lot of things around manufacturing, learned how to do advanced manufacturing, building factories of the future, consolidating factories, working with government and state, local companies to go actually drive capabilities. Did a lot of acquisitions, went into the space business, space classified side for many, many years, trying to go develop, very high-end, expensive payloads through the intelligence organization. And spent the last few years really driving space across civil, international, the DoD, intelligence side. We did some acquisitions within Blue Canyon and Seeker, so I got to go out there and run, kind of small companies. And then found myself here at Voyager now, trying to go address the need of the nation in a totally different way. I really believe hey, this is how we're going to go attack the threat and actually go get some stuff done in space that we're supposed to go get done.
Yeah, it's funny you bring up the threat. The fight starts with the threat, always. And that's true for every domain, and that's a way every service addresses their capability needs is based on what the adversary is doing in that domain. So really great that you're focusing on the threats. Based on that, let's talk about some of the priorities that you're working on at Voyager, some of the key things you want to get accomplished in the next couple of years.
Yeah, there's the greatest part about Voyager is that we have a breadth of capabilities and technologies, all mission enabling, from civil, human space, and then obviously my business, which is defense and national security. So there are so many things. I mean, we spent all day Monday with much of the Space Force senior leadership talking about in our sessions here at Aerospace, what are the things and those threats that we need to go attack? How do we move faster into those things? And it's a dialogue that you are very familiar with. How do we get there? What is it? Is the problem how we classify things? Is the problem, what gets acquired? Is the problem, the industry? And obviously we all know that there's a lot of things that need to get fixed for us to go get there. Also why I'm passionate about being an advocate here at SFA is because there are just a lot of things that we just need to get off the dime and move on. And like I said, at Voyager, we have capabilities not only on the weapon side and the defense business. We're doing ISR, and we have a whole space set of complementary mission-ready capabilities that we're putting into space. All of those means that proliferation is key to all this stuff, and it has to happen. And that means that contracts do have to come from the government. We have to have them at the right classification level, and then people like us have to actually be able to build them at rate. And so our focus in the next few years is, hey, what are those capabilities that we got to go get ready? How do we understand what are the ones that are going to make the biggest moves for the organizations, build the infrastructure to support those things? And we've just got a lot of support, with our investors, our customers, and hey, you guys are a company that are actually going to go shake and bake and make this thing actually happen. So a lot of pressure, which I love.
Yeah.
But it makes me wake up every day thinking like, look, dude, I can do it here. I know that it's capable, like we're capable of doing it here, and this is where I can make something happen.
Thank you for that. And how critical is workforce to supporting everything you just kind of laid out?
Oh yeah, I can tell you one thing through my career, everything has been about people. That's the way I wake up in the morning. It's about who's on my team. Some of the best people that are in the industry, I'm trying to bring onto the organization. And it's really how you set up the organization to be successful. I like to lead with empathy. It's the biggest thing for me. Being empathetic. Everybody that's in aerospace and defense wants to bring capability. Everybody wants to have purpose. Everybody wants to go do a great job. There's usually something that's holding them back from doing that. So if you have the ability to listen to your people and understand, hey, what are the things that are holding you back from creating capability? And my job as a leader is to break those barriers down. You will make very fast and agile and strong teams to go execute this stuff. And that's what we're doing at Voyager. That's what I'm trying to build there. And with Voyager, we have the agility to go do that like I've never had before. So, find the right people to put in the right place to go deliver the right things that I need to deliver on.
Perfect. From that perspective, can you describe a recent success for the company where you've demonstrated agility, you've had the exact right workforce, and as a result, you're able to solve the critical needs?
There's a couple of places that we are doing that, and that's the fun part about my job is like there's a lot of great successes. So trying to pick some of those ones that are the top. Obviously, the big conversation today is Iron Dome.
Yep.
Golden Dome.
Golden Dome. That's right.
Golden Dome. And what is that? What is that, and what does that mean? Where is everybody going to play inside those things? And for us at Voyager, we have our fingers kind of in all of those pieces. We've been developing technologies for the weapon side of the business, really solid rocket propulsion technology. And we've been working that for a while, and a lot of that stuff is now coming to fruition. We're going on NGIs, doing their roll control systems. But in those adjacent sides, hey, for all of these things, we need to build a process information. We need to be able to track our guidance. We need to have star trackers to go do those things. There's a lot of capabilities that, as we built these relationships, there's just a lot of capability that we can drag into the mission. And we've been very successful. Just went through some of our design reviews with the programs and making great success on those sides. And that's opening us up to, hey, now I've got a missile defense capability on the electronic side. How do I go leverage that in the space side and then go get the volume and get the rates up so that I can actually go help provide the Space Force with what they need is real rate production for electronics.
Perfect. Hypersonics.
Yes.
Everyone's talking hypersonics now as well.
Yes. 100%.
So tell us a little bit about some of the technology you've developed to support the hypersonic initiatives.
I mentioned a little bit about our propulsion business that we have. We have a very, very unique capability of taking solid rocket propulsion, igniting it, and then turning it back off, which allows us to have much longer engagements on targets, allows us to run multiple missions inside that. 'Cause normally, if you have a propulsion system, you fire it once. You don't get to stop it. It's kind of like, like firework. Once you hit it, that thing's going. Our capability has the ability to extinguish itself, store that energy, use the energy for us to do, controls and maneuvers, light that thing back up, store the energy again, and repeat it over and over again to allow us to get, again, much more capability on the mission side, much longer engagements, and help the peak kill at the end of the day for the business. So it's very excited.
That's really cool. Yeah. And that's ready to go.
That technology is on NGI, and we're doing qualifications on those, and we have insertion points. We can't talk about what some of the other ones are on there, but we're moving fast.
That's great. Let's pivot a little bit. You've been a partner of SFA as a company now for a while, and now you saw the opportunity and you want to join the leadership team of SFA, which again we're very proud to have you on the board. Why? What do you want to do at SFA? What are you seeing SFA doing, and why do you want to join?
Right. I mean, I look across. It goes back to the talk of our meetings on Monday. A lot of discussions around what is it that needs to happen in order for us to drive a capability, and obviously Golden Dome is a perfect example of that. It is somewhat daunting in thinking about all the capability that we have to go do. organizations like SFA help us and help everybody understand what it is that we're trying to go do, what the problem is that we need to go attack, and make sure we're driving the industry, the customers, all the way vertically up and down this whole ecosystem of space and how it's actually going to happen. This is an organization that goes help actually bring those things to fruition. Like, what is happening? Where are we going to go with this stuff? How do we decipher what is actually happening? What do I need on the supply chain side? How do we go drive, those capabilities, whether it's on partnerships and what the partnerships that actually need to happen. And then those connections within the companies that you guys have on your team, a lot of great people that are already part of the organization, and obviously continuing to grow that so that we have more members that are in this thing that can go help us drive the message and drive the capability.
Yeah, we talk about this regularly. Whenever I visit different states and locales, which again, the backbone of the organization are our volunteers.
Yeah.
And they're everywhere. They're around the globe because they're so excited about the mission.
Yeah, right.
And not everyone can join the Space Force, but
Right.
everyone can join the Space Force Association. But one of the points is every state, if they're not thinking about how they're going to be involved in this future space economy,
Right.
they're missing the boat. And so what SFA is doing is positioning ourselves such that we're helping to educate the different states
Right.
on how to influence that future space economy and how the state can be part of that future space economy.
Yes.
And so that's it. How can Voyager help with that?
By the way, also why I joined, we are very quick. Obviously, our focus is investing into the future of space and defense. That means that we have to have partners, both state and local.
Right.
I'm in meetings all the time with these guys, and they're trying to figure out, Matt, how do I answer the problems that you have? And it's an education thing that we have to continually do. And they have much longer timelines than what we have for some of these things. Theirs is legislation. They have the way in which that they get their funds, how all that activity on their side happens. The more we can educate them early so that they understand what's coming this year and next year and what we need to help close these things to make it happen within their districts or within the state, the better we educate those folks, then the better they're going to be a partner for us for the things that we actually need. And, sometimes we're still figuring out what we need, and they're, in fairness to them, they're focused on many, many other things. And we need companies like SFA that are actually going and driving them and saying, hey, this is where you need to be in 3 to 5 years. And so for me, being on the board and helping go drive that, because I'm living it every day, I want to help where I can, but it can't just be, me by myself, just trying to do it one problem in one state at a time. So great opportunity here with you guys to actually go do that in a much, much bigger way.
Yeah, really do appreciate that. And again, you talked about the threats. There are people today, I would say, I heard a number, I don't know if it's true, less than 11% of the US population knows that the Space Force exists. And even worse, people don't realize what the Space Force does. And so just knowing that it exists is one thing, knowing what it does is something else. So what do you tell people that say, what do you mean the Space Force? Or what do you mean there's threats in space? How do you describe that? How do you have that discussion?
Well, most of the time, that's a very, very long conversation with me because I know way too much about space, and it is in everything that we do. It depends on my audience, obviously, because there's many pieces that I'm very passionate about, and my leadership. Dylan has been extremely active on the human space side and where we're going on human space. There are so many opportunities, really to change humanity and how we're doing things with space flight and what we're doing. We have an organization called Space for Humanity that runs out of our organization, really putting citizens up on commercial flights that come back here, and they're responsible to actually go drive some type of change for humanity there. And it's amazingly passionate people that are doing it. One of them, introducing STEM in Mexico. Just amazing things. So those folks that, hey, as I say, you always got to tailor your message to who those people are. And,
That's right.
And there's people that are very passionate about human space. I look at it as I know too much about the defense and national security side, where people sometimes don't realize how integrated space is to our everyday life. Just you go to the gas pump, you go to the bank, you go to any one of those things, all relying on GPS, the timing of those things, timing that goes down to every one of those terminals. that's a really big deal that, I look at me as myself, I'm responsible to making sure that that is available for people every day. And most, like you said, 8% of the population doesn't even realize that we have an organization that's focused on that, nor even those 8% know how important it is for us to protect it. And so, for me, it's educating people on the capabilities that we are going to have in the future, even with what we're doing with communication layers across the world, bringing a fully networked world that will bring, new e-commerce. There's a whole lot of things that are happening that are going to transform over the next 5 to 10 years just because of the capabilities that we now have with launch and access to space.
We hosted an event, which, by the way, Space for Humanity, great organization. We work with them a lot. So glad to have you help continue that dialogue.
Yeah.
It's great. We hosted an event not too long ago where the S2 came to the National Press Club in DC, and he started talking about dogfighting in space.
Yes.
And then we started to hear General Guetlein talking about dogfighting in space. So, when folks talk about threats, one, you can't see the space domain, and so you make assumptions. You just say, well, I don't know what's happening up there. I assume everything's good. And when you talk about satellites, people picture a satellite. And they say, there's that one satellite doing that one thing. Well, no, there's a lot of satellites doing a lot of things. And that's very specific, of course. So how do you describe, we're talking about dogfighting in space. That's going to kind of carry on over to a lot of other impacts. And one of the biggest things that we saw at COVID specifically was supply chains. So let's talk about the future of the supply chain industrial base. What does that look like?
Yeah, and obviously that's a big topic of today because there's lots of movement around, domestic supply and everything that's happening within the government today. So obviously huge, big topic. But for us, it has been a topic for at least the last 10 years. And back to the access to space. The access to space is beyond anything that we've ever seen before. So the question becomes is how do you go populate all of the things that need to happen, whether you're looking at space control, whether you're looking at telecommunications, whether you're looking at Earth observation. There are so many things that we have got to supply, this world with in space that it does seem somewhat insurmountable on the supply chain side, but it's really not, right? And I think that's back to part of coming back to the SFA is breaking down the problem in which we have. It's not, it seems like, oh my God, we're never gonna get past this. And there has been a lot of great work that has been done. If you pick at things around like all the activities around the weapons side that they're doing with, solid rocket motors and understanding like, hey, we've got a really big gap there. I think with the space side, that hasn't really been brought to the table. And I look at this organization as helping us bring to the table like, hey, where are those real gaps for us in the supply chain in space? And then how do we go create the partnerships to go attack them, right? Because again, it is electronics, it's solar arrays. There's a set of things that they are the bread and butter of us, populating the skies to go do all these missions. And it's not clearly understood by all the people that are driving some of these of, hey, what are the knobs that we need to turn to go make that happen? And back to, like you said, the state and local governments, about all the funding that comes out for things like the CHIPS Acts and, how does that actually funnel into each of the tiers of supply chain? Voyager is obviously focusing on, direct things into weapons and space. How do we go create that capability for us to actually go drive rate production for, getting to a point where we can proliferate the skies with these things to do all the things that you just talked about?
Well, I always go back to Space Power. I always refer back to the previous conference that we host. I was really honored to have Mr. Isaacman on stage, the future NASA administrator. And he's talking about Guardians in Space. First time I heard that from NASA at all, saying, here's the civil sector talking about the defense sector having Guardians in Space. And really what we're starting to talk about is exactly what you're saying, proliferation of technology and the impact on the economy on the ground. But now let's talk about proliferation in orbit, cislunar, factories on the moon, cities on Mars. I mean, what does that look like?
Yeah, I mean, and it doesn't stop there. I mean, the factories and there are a lot of activities going on right now of like, how do I go and produce things? And that's part of what Voyager has been doing with Starlab is there are so many technologies that we can unlock, through our, science and technology where today, most of the stuff that NASA, NOAA, and the folks that do Earth science side, a lot of it has been focused on the government side. This is a whole private sector of people that now have, you're talking about medicines and plants and new capabilities that are going to be out there. There are so many things out there that almost never stops, and the capabilities that we're going to be able to go do. But I think to your question, I think somebody at the Tectonics was kind of asking like, okay, so when are we going to be on the moon and when are we going on Mars? I think no matter what I say today, my answer is going to be wrong, because the pace in which that we are moving at some of these things is, if you step back, I mean, obviously we can have the argument on defense, like, hey, did we get all the things that we said we're going to do over the last few years? Probably not everything we wanted, but if you basically step back from, where we are, the access to space that we have, what we've already put up in space is happening way faster than everybody realizes. And I'd say that's probably sooner than we think that it's going to happen. So very excited for that.
Yeah. President Trump said it in his inauguration speech. He said, we're going to Mars. Yeah. And so what we as an organization are thinking about is, okay, what does the national and international strategy look like that's going to get us to Mars? Because we appreciate Mr. Musk fist pumping in the sky saying, yeah, let's go to Mars. That's great. Right. But collectively, we got to come up with a strategy and a plan to get us to Mars.
Yeah. And that's why I look at this partnership like with SFA, helping us understand what do those things look like? What are those partnerships that are realistic, that can actually happen? Where do we go make those connections? Where do we help educate people on where those connections need to be happening and where they're not? And then go drive this, and again, this is almost an international, very domestic, problem of how do we go create those partnerships for all these things to go get in place. It's right in front of us, but
you're right. It's something we're toying with here in the organization, is the establishment of the World Space Coalition, the World Space Consortium.
Yeah.
I mean, why wouldn't we have that, such that nations actually commit resources to demonstrate capability and start getting us to the next phase that we need to get to in space?
And that has been the conversation with even from the Space Force leadership this week, has been really around, there are a lot of capabilities that are putting up by all of our international partners. We need to figure out how to leverage those things, figure out how to help them. It is really, how do we become the best partners to go make a 1+1 relationship equal 3, 5, 10 with some of our international partners. So I think it's a great idea.
And like you said, I mean, SFA, we're agile and we can scale based on the talented folks that we have within the organization and the tremendous group of volunteers that we have supporting this entire organization. And so what we do here at SFA, and your demonstration of this, sir, is we create Space Force champions.
Yep.
So Space Force champions are those that are champions for ensuring the Space Force has the capabilities it needs, advocates for a strong Space Force, educates folks about the Space Force. So we really appreciate you coming on board and becoming a Space Force champion.
I appreciate you guys having me, and I'm going to be there right there with you guys. We're going to go bring some more folks here, and I'm excited for the future of SFA.
Thanks so much, Matt. We'll talk to you real soon. Have a great day. Semper Supra.
Thanks. Appreciate you guys.